Imagine this quietly. Not as a dramatic question, but as a private pause you allow yourself. What if the thing shaping how people respond to you is not what you say, not what you own, not how hard you try, but how little you react? Most men never examine this. They move through life pulled by impulse, nudged by emotion, dragged by the need to be understood. They mistake intensity for depth, reaction for strength. And because of that, they live exposed, predictable, readable, easily shaken. Yet there is another way of moving through the world. It is quieter, harder to notice at first, but once seen, it cannot be unseen. This is not about dominance. It is not about tactics, confidence tricks, or rehearsed lines. It is about restraint. And restraint, when genuine, carries weight. Consider how often a man gives away his center without realizing it. A comment unsettles him. A delayed reply disturbs his peace. An argument pulls him into defending things that never needed defense. Each reaction feels small in the moment, but together they form a pattern of availability, of emotional openness without boundaries. People sense this before they understand it, especially women. Not consciously, not maliciously, but instinctively. Emotional instability does not announce itself loudly. It leaks through tone, through timing, through the urgency to be validated, through the subtle tension of someone who needs the outcome to go a certain way. And what is sensed as need is rarely respected. There was a man, ordinary by every visible measure, who lived inside this pattern for years. He was not weak, not unkind, not incapable, but he was constantly reacting. He explained himself too much. He adjusted his behavior to maintain harmony. He absorbed frustration rather than choosing when to engage. He thought this was maturity. It wasn't. It was surrender dressed up as politeness. What changed him was not motivation or ambition. It was understanding. A slow, uncomfortable realization that much of his suffering came not from what happened to him, but from how quickly he gave his inner authority away. He encountered an old idea, one that does not promise happiness, but offers freedom. The idea was simple enough to overlook. You are responsible for your responses, not the world's behavior. Stoicism is often misunderstood as emotional coldness. It is not. It is emotional literacy. The ability to feel without being ruled, to observe without immediately acting, to let sensation pass without turning it into identity. Most men feel first and think later. The Stoic reverses that order. This alone creates distance, and distance creates gravity. Think of a room filled with noise, opinions clashing, energy scattered, people asserting, reacting, escalating. In that environment, the person who does not rush to fill silence stands out, not because he demands attention, but because he does not need it. Calm is rare, and rarity attracts focus. This is not because calm is impressive. It is because calm signals safety. A man who governs himself is not easily destabilized by others. He does not mirror chaos. He does not borrow emotion. He chooses when to enter and when to remain still. That choice is felt long before it is admired. Here is what most never notice. The moment you stop chasing reassurance, you become reassuring. The moment you stop explaining yourself, your words carry more weight. The moment you stop reacting to every disturbance, your presence grows steadier. This is not manipulation. It is alignment. The ancient Stoics understood something modern men are rarely taught. Power begins internally, not as control over others, but as mastery of impulse. The world will always test you. People will provoke, withdraw, misunderstand. None of this is new. What matters is whether you allow every test to rewrite your state. The man who learned this did not become louder. He did not become colder. He became slower. Slower to speak, slower to assume, slower to be offended. And in that slowness, something unexpected happened. People leaned in, not because he demanded respect, but because he no longer begged for it, silently or otherwise. This is the foundation, not attraction, not relationships, but self-command. Everything else builds from here. What follows after self-command is not immediate reward. That is where most men lose patience. They expect the world to respond quickly once they change internally. When it doesn't, they doubt the change itself. But Stoicism was never about outcomes. It was about position. Where you stand when outcomes remain uncertain. This is where emotional intelligence deepens. A man who governs himself does not rush to be understood. He allows misunderstanding to exist without rushing to correct it. He no longer treats every moment as a referendum on his worth. Silence stops feeling like rejection. Distance stops feeling like danger. And this alters how relationships unfold. Attachment, when unconscious, is a quiet hunger. It watches reactions closely. It measures tone. It seeks reassurance through proximity and response. Most men don't call this attachment. They call it care. But care without boundaries becomes pressure, and pressure erodes desire. A Stoic man still feels attachment. He simply refuses to let it speak before wisdom does. He understands something subtle. Attraction does not grow where there is emotional dependency. It grows where there is emotional safety. And safety is created by consistency, not intensity. This is where many misunderstand calm. Calm is not passivity, it is discipline. The discipline to not pursue every urge. The discipline to allow space without filling it with anxiety. The discipline to remain grounded even when uncertainty appears. When a woman pulls away, the reactive man follows. He asks questions he doesn't want answered. He fills the silence with effort. He over-explains. He over-gives. He believes closeness must be earned through persistence. The grounded man does something different. He pauses, not as a tactic, as a principle. He observes without accusation. He notes behavior without immediately assigning meaning. He does not assume abandonment, nor does he chase reassurance. He allows time to reveal what words cannot. This restraint does not push people away. It filters them. Those who are unsure become clearer. Those who were testing boundaries stop testing. Those who respect strength begin to respond differently. And if they don't, the Stoic man does not collapse inward. He does not interpret rejection as a verdict on his value. He understands impermanence as a law, not a failure. Everything changes. Relationships shift. Feelings evolve. Nothing owed stays owed forever. This acceptance is not bitterness, it is realism. Dark philosophy does not deny hope, it removes illusion. The illusion that consistency guarantees loyalty. The illusion that effort guarantees love. The illusion that being good ensures permanence. Once these illusions fall, something steadier replaces them. Choice. You choose how close to stand. You choose how much to invest. You choose when to speak and when to withdraw energy. And because these choices are no longer driven by fear, they carry authority. A man who can walk away internally before he has to walk away physically is not desperate. He is prepared. He is not threatening distance. He is comfortable with it. This comfort is sensed, not because it is announced, but because it does not flinch. Women often speak of wanting presence. What they respond to is containment.
someone who can hold emotional weight without spilling it everywhere, someone whose calm does not depend on constant affirmation. This is why self-control reads as leadership, not because it dominates, but because it stabilizes. The man who practices this begins to notice a shift. Conversations slow down. Eye contact lingers longer. Tension dissolves more easily, not because he tries harder, but because he tries less to control perception. He is no longer performing confidence. He is conserving energy. And energy, when conserved, becomes magnetic. This is not the end of struggle, but it is the end of confusion. Because once you stop reacting blindly, you start seeing clearly.
Clarity does not arrive with fireworks. It settles in quietly, like dust after a storm. And once it settles, you begin to see what was always there. This is the final shift. Not the moment you become unbothered, but the moment you stop bargaining with reality. By now, the man who has practiced restraint understands something most never reach. Peace is not found by controlling outcomes, but by refusing to abandon yourself while waiting for them. This is where Stoicism becomes lived, not studied. You stop rehearsing conversations in your head. You stop tracking reactions for hidden meaning. You stop asking yourself what you could have done differently every time something doesn't work. Not because you don't care, but because you care in the right order. First, about your integrity. Then, about alignment. Only after that, about attachment. This order changes everything. In relationships, this means you no longer try to secure permanence through effort. You understand that nothing alive can be forced to stay the same. Desire breathes. Connection moves. And when it no longer moves toward you, you do not chase it into exhaustion. You let distance speak, and distance always speaks honestly. This is where emotional boundaries stop being abstract ideas and become instinct. You feel the difference between generosity and overextension, between patience and self-erasure, between silence that preserves dignity and silence that hides fear. The Stoic man does not cut people off impulsively. He does not punish with withdrawal. He simply stops leaning where there is no support. This alone prevents resentment, because resentment grows when you give past the point of consent, when you stay past the point of alignment, when you hope past the point of evidence. Dark philosophy teaches this without romance. Most suffering is not caused by loss, but by refusal to accept loss when it has already occurred emotionally. Once you accept this, grief becomes cleaner, shorter, more honest. You do not need to villainize anyone. You do not need to rewrite history. You do not need closure delivered by another person. You become your own witness. And this is the quiet power most men never develop. From here, respect follows naturally, not because you demand it, but because your behavior no longer invites disregard. You speak when you have something to say. You leave when staying would cost you self-respect. You remain calm not as a performance, but as a baseline. People adjust around this. Some rise to meet it. Some drift away. Both outcomes are information. The Stoics never promised a painless life. They offered a dignified one. A life where you are not at war with your emotions, nor enslaved by them. Where attraction, connection, and respect are byproducts of self-command, not objectives chased at the cost of your center. This is not about becoming untouchable. It is about becoming unshakable. And once you reach that place, you realize the paradox. The less you seek validation, the less you need it when it arrives. The less you fear loss, the more fully you can engage without clinging. You stand rooted, not rigid, rooted. If this resonated with you, let it be more than something you listened to. Let it be something you practice. And if you want to stay in this space of calm, grounded reflection,
A simple like or subscribe is a quiet way to continue the journey together.